Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to look into debugging, and when we deal with JPA, there's a huge difference between the primary and the secondary entity when we are dealing with relations, and that is exactly what we are doing right here. We are dealing with a many-to-many relation between a space crew member right here. We have a space crew member that can have many skills. So here's the entity right here. We have the entity right here. You can see that right there. Crew member, and it has an ID that we do not control ourselves. Then it has a name, and then it has a list of skills like cooking and fishing and a lot of other stuff that we can add to this crew member right here. And as we can see right here, the link to the skill is actually defined on the crew member side. So this is the primary entity when we are dealing with this relation right here, and that is very important. I will try to show some normal mistakes that you can come into and some exceptions that you will actually get. And sometimes you will not get an exception, then you will just not get the behavior that you would actually expect with JPA. So it's very important to know which one is the primary and which one is the secondary. On the entity that actually has the description of the relation, how to create this join, that is a primary. Here we can see description. We also have the many-to-many. We have that on both sides, but here we have that it should be joined. That those tables should be joined with another table. That means that we have a join table that has this name right here. We have a column name right here. We have the column name the other way around. And this is actually wrong. I can see that join columns. The inverse join column, that should actually point to this one right here. So I will actually change that to crew ID, and then we will say that this should be the skill ID. The inverse, that is the other way around. That is if we want to join, if you want to point it to the crew member, then that is the name right here. So here we have this is our primary entity. Then we have the skill entity, which is right here. This is the secondary entity, and we can see that because we only have the add many-to-many, and we can see that it's already mapped by the field skills on the crew member. That is what this says right here. It is already mapped. We will not have any mapping on this entity right here because it's done on the other side. That means on the crew member, and it is done on the skills on the skills field. So let us go look again. It is named skills, and it is on the crew member right there. So let us go back to skills once more just to see what we actually have. We have an ID that we do not control. Then we have a description that we do control. This is where we will put in fishing and cooking and stuff like that. That's cool. Now I have two entities. I have actually I've mapped them together. Now I would like to create some cool tests or maybe some cool code, and that's exactly what I have in this test right here. So I've already prepared some code, and of course it's full of bugs, full of errors that we will fix together now. First of all, it is just a Spring Boot test. This means I'll get the context up and running. So I am auto-wiring in the crew member repository and the skill repository right here. And here, this is my test, and I just need to add members. I can name it whatever I want to. Since JUnit 5, then we do not need to name or test methods anything. We just annotate with add test. So the first thing I want to do, I want to delete all of my skills, and I want to delete all of my crew members because I know this database is being fed with some entities. There are already some rows inside this database. It is a H2 database, so whenever I spin up this Spring context, then I actually insert some entities. I do that with the post construct, but I do that in another place. But we will just ignore that right now, where I do it and how I do it, because that's irrelevant. What is relevant is that we want to delete all of the skills. We want to delete all of the crew members before we continue on this piece of code right here. Then I create some assertion. I assert that there are 0 skills, there are 0 crew members, and then I actually save some skills. I create some new skills. So these are the skills that I actually want to create. And here I am saving all of these that I mentioned in this list right here, and create a new skill named cooking. I create a new skill named fishing. There was at some point in some of the JPA versions, you should actually be careful with using list off, because this would actually create an immutable list, and that would give you a weird error. So it is an unmodifiable list, and you would actually get a weird error, and it will actually mention the keyword unmodifiable list in your exception. So if you get a weird exception with unmodifiable list, then it's probably because you are trying to that's probably because you're trying to set. You're trying to set some lists where you should actually have a mutable list, and you set it with an unmodifiable list instead. That's just an extra bonus note right here. But we create two skills right here, cooking and fishing right here. And I'm using the builder pattern, as you can see right here. So I get the builder, I get that from Lombok. That's not something I maintain myself, of course. And here then I take out one skill. Of course, I could have used the whole list. I also have the whole list right here, but I just take one skill out of the skill repository. I just get the first one that I have in my repository. Then I create a crew member right here. Then this crew member is named Mike. I'm not attaching the skills at first. I could do that if I want to, actually, but I'm not doing that because I want to set the skills later on. But since it is bi-directional link, right? We have a many-to-many. Why not set the crew member on the skill? That should be just as good, right? And that's of course where you're wrong, but let us look at that in just a minute. Why? And I've also prepared some fixes, as you can see right here. It should be set on the primary entity, not on the secondary. Spoiler alert. So, but then I have some assertions right here. I assert that I have one entity in my crew member table, my crew member repository, and I also assert that I have two skills in my skill repository right here. Then I check and then I print out all of my skills just for fun, just to see. Then we get some output, and then I say skills on Mike, and then I am selecting all. Yeah, and this is actually where we want to have a find all to begin with, because here we will actually get another error. That's another error we want to fix. So first of all, we use find all, and then we say for each of these crews that we actually get out, get the skills, and then print them out, system out print line like this. This is called a method reference. If you don't know what a method reference is, then look up my Java and Lambda video. There's explanation, but it's just a reference to a method, and that is something that we can do when we are dealing with lists like this. Then we have our assertions right here. Actually, whenever we're dealing with lambdas, but it's another story. Then I'm certain that I have exactly one crew member, and I'm certain I have one skill on the first crew member that I find. This is what I'm doing right here. So I just assert that I have at least one skill. So let's get started. What actually happens when we start to run this code right here? It looks quite innocent. It should actually work, right? So we press play. And what do we get? We got an error, an exception. That is not good. What happens now? So, what does it say right here? It could not unable to map collection crew member skills. Okay. Unable to map, that's not good. Unable to find column with logical name. And that is because I changed the column names. I don't know if you remember that, but let me just look in my application.properties file. It should just be memory, that should be fine, and we should have the DLL parts to update. Let me just set this one right here. Let's see what happens now. There was no exception that I was actually looking for. Let me just check right here. Error creating B. Okay, so now we get another error. Let us just check that one. Unable to map collection. Many-to-many. Crew member skill. Right there. So, and that is because could not find column with logical name skill ID. That's because I made an error, and that was actually what I did in the beginning. Let me just go to my crew member right here. So here we have the references, right? The joint column, yes, the joint column should be crew ID, and the skill and the reference column name should be. The inverse joint column should be skill ID. Let us just try that like this and see if it's not better now. Yes. Yes. So now we get the right exception. It was, yeah. So it's because these IDs, of course, they have to point at the right name that we have right here. Here we have one crew ID, and this will actually match the join columns right here. And then we have the skill, which is the that is of course the secondary entity, and then that would be the inverse join column right here, the skill ID right here. Okay, so now we get the right exception now when we run this test right here. This is what I wanted to show you. Here we get the first data integrity violation exception. And which line is it actually? It says right here, could not execute statement. We tried to delete from the skill table. So we tried to delete an ID right there, and that is because actually Jpa automatically creates a foreign key constraint, and that means that if I go to this line right here, then I cannot delete from the skill repository before I have deleted from the crew member repository. So I can just I have to change the order of these two right here. If I change the order right here, then we can continue the code, because this is the primary. This is a primary entity, so we have to delete this one first, and then after that, then we can then delete the skill the skill row. And this is because of the database constraint that Jpa automatically puts on the database whenever we start our database up, our Spring application up. Then we will actually the tables are being created. They are being created with this foreign key constraint, and this is the primary, and this is a secondary. That's mean that we have to delete this one first before we delete the skill repository, or else we will get this join table that is actually just that's inconsistent. It might have IDs from one of these tables right here. Now let us try to press play after we delete from the primary first. This is one way to solve this. Now we get another error, and let me just check that we get another error, because we don't want to handle that right now. Yeah, now we get down here. That's another error, but we passed on in the code. And then I just want to show you another trick. You do not have to delete the skills if you want to. If you don't want to, you can just go and set a cascade option on the crew member. So if I go to crew member right here, then on the many-to-many right here, then I can actually say that I want to set cascade, and then I can set that to, all. Then it doesn't mean, then it doesn't matter whether we want to, whether we have. What this cascade means is that then they will also manipulate the child objects right here. So this means the secondary objects, if you will. So that is the same. The child and secondary objects right here is the same. But right here, if I just set it to remove, that means that when I try to delete. When I delete one crew member, then it will actually go through all of the child objects, all of the secondary objects, and then it will actually delete those also. So that is one. But you have to know what you're doing here, because suddenly, if you didn't mean to delete also the skills, maybe the skills were used from another type of another entity also, right? So then it depends on how complex your model was. Maybe we had an alien repository that actually also used these skills. Then it's not a good idea that those skills are just deleted whenever the crew. Whenever a crew is deleted, right? So let us try again and see what happens now. We should actually end up with the same exception at the same place now, because we have some assertions right here that skill and crew number are 0. If not, then we will be stopped right there. And we actually continue to this line right here. So let us see what actually happened now. So we deleted all of our crew members. We deleted all of our skills. We created 2 new skills. That's what happened without any errors right here. So we got 2 new skills, cooking and fishing. We could select one of these skills. We could create one more crew member, and we could. First, we are trying to set the crew members on the skill, and then we are saving that. That's okay for now. Because that's not the error that we actually get. Then we go to the skill repository, we find them all, and then we print them out in the console. That also went okay. Then we went to system out print line, and then the skills on mic. Let's just see that we got that output right here. So we can see we have it right there. We have the skills, and then we have the skills on Mike, and then it crashed. What happened here? What happened here? We actually get this fails to lazily initialize a collection with the role many-to-many skills, and then it says no session. What this means is that the data can actually not be fetched, because what Jpa would normally do when you do this, it would actually create a new SQL, and then it will actually run that new SQL against the database, and then we will get the skills automatically. But it cannot do that because now we are outside the Spring Boot service or service, or we're outside the transactional scope, because we are down in the test. So we actually got this. We just got this entity back, and we do not have any session right now. Of course, if we were up in our Spring Boot code up in a service or something like that, then we would have then we will still be in a transactional scope, as it's called. You can also annotate your methods with a transaction if you have a lot of things going on regarding database requests that you want to finish before you want to handle the next request that comes maybe to your REST API, for instance. But what can we do now to get these? What can we do to get these skills out, so we actually also get the skills? It's actually quite simple. We can create a query, and I've already done that. So let us just go look at that. Select all with skill. We can create this by doing this. Select C from crew member. C, left join, fetch skills. This sentence right here, this means that it will actually fetch, and it will actually join the skill table with the crew member table, and also fetch all of that data, and then also put that on our crew member data model or Java object, and then it will actually return that to us. So that means that then we will actually have the data. Let us now press play and see what happens now. Because how many skills do we have? Yes. Now we came to another line. This line right here. Now it's not an exception we get. Now it's actually a failed test instead, and that is because we have actual 0 skills. We expected 1, and that is because we tried to add we added the crew member to the skill and not the other way around. That is wrong because it's not the primary. It's not the parent entity. We should instead set it on the crew member like this, and then we should save the crew member afterwards like this, and then we will actually be happy. Let us see what happens now. Now we have a green test. All of the stuff that we wanted to do actually worked, and we came through with it. That's quite awesome. One more thing regarding this repository right here, we could also have created a. We could actually have said that it should always be picked up. The data, the skill data. We could do that with the fetch type right here, because per default it's lazy. If we set this to eager instead, let us try that. Then we should get the data automatically every time. So that means that then we should go to here. We have the test. So that means that if I go down to my test right here. If I say find all, like we had before, then I should also get my skills now, because I have set the fetch strategy to eager instead of lazy. Let's see if it works. So it works. I'm quite happy, and I hope you learned a lot about how actually that it actually matters which entity is the parent and which entity is the child, or which entity is the primary or secondary. Let me know what kind of name you prefer: primary, secondary, parent, child. And that's actually it. I will place the code as usual on my GitHub account, and I hope you like to debug a bit of Jpa with me. People think it's very difficult, Jpa, and if you find Jpa difficult, then you definitely should try out the Jpa body. It will help you a lot in the beginning, especially with the queries. If you want to create a query in Spring, you can do it with the method. You can actually just with the right name of the method, then Spring actually would create a query from that. Jpa will create a query from that. And then you will get your data. And let me just let us say that we want 1 instance right here, and we can say that it should be an optional we want to be returned, and we want the name should be equal to some variable, and it should not be null. And then we can, now I've actually already created this is a Spring Data by method name query. This means that now I can actually select a crew member. If I just give the name, then I will get a crew member. If there is one, if there was no matches, then I will get an empty optional instead. And this is Jpa Body. It is awesome. If you haven't checked it out, then check out Jpa Body. And I have a Jpa Body video actually that comes out at some point. I don't remember when I scheduled it to, but also feel free to check that one out, of course. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.